we're not out looking for answers. Oh, what awaits us, on the other side after we pass?
Right, yeah.
That's not us, because there's a million other paranormal groups out there that are doing just that.
But there's no answer to that.
No. There's only one way that you're going to know for sure.
That's
what
right.
awaits on the other side, and that's our own passing ourselves. Yeah.
That's right. And and is there really it's an interesting thing, but so when you went to Doan's,
that's
Hollow,
our game is we want to communicate.
So when you were at Doan's Hollow, as I told you, my sort of thing, did you guys pick up on anything there when you were there, or?
Not in terms of feelings. Even using the equipment, we had a couple words come through. One of them was a female voice. It could have been Elizabeth. We don't know for sure, because when we were there, you had told me previously about Elizabeth.
Right, yeah.
So that's the first thing I thought of when we got this female voice come through, and that was right away when we started. And we thought, okay, is this Elizabeth? And we tried to get a name for the whole rest of the time we were there, and it didn't happen. So I have no idea if we were communicating with Elizabeth or one of the other females that are there at the grounds.
Right, because, there's quite a number of people buried in there. But the interesting thing, too, I find is that, like I said, these are just, for me, I've never been to Doan's Hollow. I didn't know anything about it before we discovered the Witch's Gate, right? So it was one of those little cemeteries that you drive by, and it's like, oh, what's this cool little place, right? Because you see it, and it's like, we have to go and check this out. And so it was just very random. And for me, when I get a name and then it's on a headstone, I hadn't even made my way into the cemetery at that point. Right. So it wasn't like I'd gone through the cemetery and inadvertently read the headstones and it was sticking in my head. Right. It was literally the minute I walked in and I went straight over to that obelisk, which, like I said, was the only actual standing stone in there. And that was when it happened. And so when I got to the back and I got to, go across and look at all the stones and when I looked at the memorial stone, that's when the name just was like, okay, ding, ding. Can't make that up, right? So it's, and I like those moments, right? I like those moments. But I found it just, again, the feeling there. And I'm gonna give you a couple of other cemeteries if you haven't been to them. Go check them out. No Witch's Gate, but at the same time, equally interesting. Have you been to the Port Rowan Anglican Church Cemetery, the old Anglican church there it's got there's folks buried in there who came up to escape on the Underground Railroad. There's a number. It's quite old, that cemetery too. It goes back to about 1820, I think. That's a really cool little cemetery to go visit. It's up on a hill in Port Rowan. It's up on the hill,
know where Port Rowan is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's very easy to find because it's really the only church in Port Rowan. It's their only real touristy historical site right now. Am I saying Port Rowan? Is it Port Rowan? Oh, I'm sorry. It's not Port Rowan. It's Port Ryersea.
Which is just down
Port
the
Rowan
road.
Has one too, but Port Ryersea. So it's at Port Ryersea. So check that one out at Port Ryersea. Another interesting one is. Let me remember where it is because it's on my way to another job that I work in a sugar bush when I'm there in the spring. It's an old Methodist cemetery. Let me just see where it is.
Well, just the other day, I discovered when we were on our way to Doan's, we actually drove right past another pioneer cemetery, and I had no idea it was there. And, of course, I'm driving. I'm focused on the road, so I didn't even see it. And I just discovered this the other day, and I said to Trudy, hey, we drove right past another one of these cemeteries on our way to Doan's. So I think this Saturday we're planning another road trip, and we're going to go to this one that we went past. But no, there's no Witch's Gate there. It's I've looked up photos, and it's just an open little cemetery. But I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, and that's sort of the whole part of it. I'm just looking to see if this is the right one or not. Oh goodness, I forget. It's an old Methodist cemetery, and I just want to see if this is the one because there's a couple of them. But this is on Red Marshall Road. So, no, this one still has the church by the looks of it. Okay, so that is not the one. So let me just see. It's literally just known as the Old Methodist Cemetery, and I'm trying to think. I think it's you know what? No, I think it's St. John's Lutheran maybe is the one I'm thinking of. So let me just see. Either way, you can't go wrong with any of them.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, it's in, I think it's in Pelham, in Pelham, or in, where is it? Crowland? No. Vineland Mennonite. Geez. You know what? I'll look it up and I'll message it to you. But it's another cool little spot. It's way off the beaten path. It's not for me when I go to work because I drive by it every day. It actually looks like it's on someone's property. So it looks like you're like, oh my God, this is on someone's property because it's off to the side of their property on a hill, like a big hill. But it's really kind of cool because it goes down, and there's this strange wooden gate. And I don't know if you saw that photo. I put it up on Facebook. The photo of the old wooden archway with a gate, and there's a lock on the gate. You can literally walk right past it because it's wide open on the other side.
I think I saw it, yeah.
Right, because we were joking about, is this the portal, right? So if you actually open the lock on the gate and go through the gate, because... yeah, so it's kind of funny that it's there. I suspect there must have been a fence or something there at one time to keep people maybe out from going, because there's properties behind it if you go down, and maybe to keep people from walking on other people's private property, right? There might have been this but I'll find out which one it is, because I think it's either Lutheran or Mennonite, or I'm sorry, Methodist. And there was a name for it, and there was a little town there originally, but the town is gone now, but the little cemetery is still there. But it's a really cool little spot, too, to go check out, for sure. It's another one. It doesn't have a Witch's Gate, but it has the strange wooden gate with the lock that seems to keep nobody out. So it's another interesting and another little interesting cemetery to visit. Another one that if you feel like doing a little bit of traveling, because it truly is a little bit of traveling, it's quite a bit of traveling, is a cemetery in a little village called Whitevale. Whitevale, I used to live in Pickering Village many, many years ago in the 80s. I bought an old farmhouse in the north end of what is essentially Pickering, today Durham. So right by the Pickering-Durham line, there's a little village called Whitevale, and they have a very old little cemetery there that is surrounded with an old, now it used to be surrounded with an old little iron fence. It was very, very run down, even in the days when I used to go there. But it's now, let's see. Oh, look, they've cleaned it all up. Wow. They have a website now for Whitevale. So if you look up Whitevale, you can actually see the cemetery. It says it was established in 1832. And so it was owned by the Major family. Originally, apparently, it was called Majorville. And the cemetery stones are there. Now, when I used to live there, it was very, very run down, really old, really run down. But there's one headstone in there, and I noticed somebody took a picture of it because I remember it. My oldest son, who's 37 now, when he was little, we used to stop there sometimes when we were driving through because my mom and that lived in Markham, area, so we used to cut through. And it literally says unknown strange. There's a headstone. So there's somebody with the last name, and I think it goes further than that, but like there's another letter, but it's so faded out that it's hard to see. So right. I'm not sure what the original, but that's what it looks like. If you look at the stone, it looks like it says unknown strange. But that's on I think it's White Veil Road, I believe that it's on. But you can look it up. It's White Veil Cemetery, so it's very straightforward. It's unknown stranger. So that's what it actually says on the headstone. So there's an interesting one to go visit. And it goes, an interesting story related to the White Veil Cemetery deals with the tale of an unknown stranger. According to the story, a man was passing through the town in 1854, stopped at the White Veil Hotel. He reportedly was discovered dead in his room the next morning with no explanation for his death and no identification. So he was buried in the cemetery. That's why I said it looked like there was another letter, so that is what the letter is. So it's unknown stranger.
Right.
So
interesting.
If you want to take a 2-hour drive going east, my parents lived that way, so for me it's not too bad. And I haven't seen them since February, but one day when I'm able to go back and visit them, I'll take a jaunt back over to there because it's all cleaned up now. When I remember driving through, there was all overgrown and bramble. It was really creepy, like it was one of those really old overgrown. It looks like somebody's clearly gotten in there now and they've cleaned it all out. A lot of the headstones look like they're put up on new blocks, new limestone blocks, and so it looks like somebody really took the time to clean up the cemetery. It's quite a small cemetery, but definitely worth visiting that one. That's a cool spot too.
Yeah, sounds like something worth checking out.
And it used to have, as I say, a lot of. It used to be surrounded by an iron fence, and I'm not seeing that right now. I'm just going to see if there's any images of it, if anybody's taken any pictures. Oh, yeah, it's still surrounded by the same iron fence. So it, too, has the old iron fence with the stone and then the iron. They may have replaced it. I'm not sure. It looks like they might have put a new fence in. But originally, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe they just painted it. But it was always surrounded by an iron fence. So it's, so it's a really another little interesting cemetery if you ever happen out on the east side of Markham, between Markham and Pickering. It's out there.
Don't get out that way too often.
No, I sometimes will happily drive for several hours to get to places that, might have some unique and interesting things to see. And so the fact that there's an actual stone that says unknown stranger is kind of one of those situations that, if it's a nice day and you're looking for something to do and you decide,
well, that's worth the trip itself right there. Yeah.
Yeah, just to see that, right? But again, too, like when you look at a lot of cemeteries and graveyards, think about those things now, with the iron and the iron features and, look at the church doors and look at, even the church windows sometimes will have iron nails or iron latches on them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So have you been to the graveyard in Beaver Dams, the original
Yes, I
graveyard
have.
there? What's that? Yeah, of course. I mean, many of us who live in the area have been to that one. And that one's a really cool. That's a very old, that's War of 1812 era graveyard there.
Yes, it is.
And I mean, even if you look at the old church there too, you'll see some of those features, right, within the church itself and within the graveyard. There doesn't seem to be much. And most of that graveyard is on the other side of the main road up on the hill. But I prefer the old graveyard right by the church, just for the fact that there's so many there. What about the one in Bridgeburg? You know where
Bridgeburg. That's Fort Erie, right?
Fort Erie, yeah. So there's the old
that's
church.
Where